You want a meaningful life, then you must begin by laying the right foundation, not ambition alone, not talent, not even opportunity, but something deeper, more still, more constant. Stoic philosophy teaches that without inner strength, outer success collapses, and without alignment, no amount of effort brings peace. The beginning is belief. Not belief in luck, not belief in others, but belief in yourself. The quiet kind that does not shout but stays when the world walks away. Without it, every step feels heavy. Every challenge becomes proof that maybe you're not enough. But with it, you endure. You adapt, you rise. Belief in yourself is not pride. It is not arrogance. It is not a mask. It is a compass. The thing that keeps you moving when the path is dark, when no one sees your effort, when nothing seems to work. It is the inner voice that says, keep going. Because I know who I am, and I know what I'm building. This is where the journey begins. Not with applause, not with certainty, but with belief. Walt Disney was laughed at, told his dreams were too childish, too risky, too unrealistic. But he kept going. Not because others believed, but because he did. That is the power you must build. Self-belief does not arrive. It is trained like a muscle in silence, in setbacks, in daily repetitions. Each time you keep a promise, each time you choose discipline, each time you face fear, you build it. And each time you give up, each time you delay, each time you listen to doubt, you weaken it. This is not philosophy for bookshelves. It is Stoic philosophy for life, for pain, for persistence. And that belief must come from within, because if it comes from others, you become fragile. You rise with praise but fall with criticism. True belief is silent, independent, anchored. It sees setbacks as lessons, not signs to stop. It looks at fear and says, I see you, but I move anyway. This kind of belief turns failure into refinement and delay into discipline. You want to become strong, then stop waiting for others to tell you who you are. Decide, and then prove it to yourself through action. The mind will doubt. That is natural, but you are not your mind, you are your decisions. So decide that today you will believe, not because you feel like it, but because it is required. Because belief is not a feeling, it is a standard, a practice, a choice you return to again and again. Remind yourself what you've overcome, what you've endured, how many times you've kept going when no one clapped. Write it down, read it again, then act like the man who believes without needing permission. Stoic philosophy does not wait. It moves quietly, deeply, deliberately, and so must you. Discipline is not restriction, it is liberation. It is the quiet structure that holds you steady when everything else shakes. Most people run from it. They say it's too strict, too boring, too hard. But what they are really saying is, I want the reward. Without the cost, discipline is the cost, and it is always worth paying. Stoic philosophy sees discipline not as punishment, but as the path, the only path to real freedom. Without discipline, you are a slave to impulse, to emotion, to mood, to whatever temptation whispers loudest today. But with discipline, you become something rare. You become someone who can be trusted, with power, with growth, with peace. Think of the sculptor who faces a block of marble. There is beauty inside, but it cannot be reached without cutting, without striking, without removing. Every disciplined act is a strike of the chisel, removing the unnecessary, revealing what's underneath. Discipline is how the masterpiece appears, not all at once, but over time, in stillness, in structure, in silence. This is the work most avoid, because it is slow, because it is not rewarded instantly, because it requires faith and repetition and solitude. But this is where greatness lives. Look at the Olympic athlete. They train before the sun rises. They sweat when no one is watching. They sacrifice what is easy for what is excellent, and no, they are not superhuman. They are simply committed to discipline. You can do the same. You must, because without discipline, your potential will rot, your ambition will remain a fantasy. Stoic philosophy demands that you live by your values, not your feelings. Feelings come and go, but values must remain. Discipline is the bridge between who you are now and who you say you want to be. You want peace. Then you must earn it in the way you eat, the way you move, the way you speak, the way you show up when there is no crowd and no comfort. Discipline is your proof that you mean what you say, and it does not require you to be perfect, only that you return again and again to the path, especially after you fall. Most people confuse discipline with perfection. They think, if I break once, it's over. But discipline is not perfection. It is persistence. Every time you slip, you return, and every return makes you stronger. This is the difference between those who dream and those who build. Discipline builds quietly, layer by layer, habit by habit. You don't need to see results today. You only need to stay consistent. The man who writes one sentence every day becomes an author. The one who trains even when it's raining becomes strong. The one who gets up when the alarm says move, even when the bed says stay, becomes unstoppable. Stoic philosophy teaches that discipline is not what you do when it's easy. It is what you do when everything in you wants to quit and you don't. This is your power, the kind no one can give you and no one can take away. Start small. Very small, but do not stop. Choose one thing, just one, and do it every day. Let it be the anchor, then build around it. Remember, discipline does not need attention, it does not need applause, it does not care if the world notices. Because you will notice, and that is what matters most. Your life will change not when others believe in you, but when you believe in your ability to stay committed. This is what separates the rare from the restless, the committed from the convenient. You want clarity? Start with discipline. You want confidence? Start with discipline. You want peace? Start with discipline. Because discipline leads you into the life you actually meant to live. And no, you won't always want to, but that doesn't matter. Do it anyway. That's where the real you is hiding. And once you meet him, you'll never want to go back. Gratitude is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is not softness, it is perspective, it is clarity. Stoic philosophy does not ask you to deny reality, but to see it completely. And part of seeing clearly is recognizing what you already have. Because without that, you will spend your whole life chasing what is missing and miss what is already yours. Most people wake up and immediately think of what's wrong, what they lack, what they haven't done yet, what others have. They compare, they scroll, they complain. Slowly they teach their minds to focus on emptiness, on insufficiency, on scarcity. But you must train your mind to notice fullness. This doesn't mean life is perfect. It means you are present, and presence is power. Gratitude does not ignore pain. It holds it and still sees beauty. It does not deny difficulty, it just refuses to let that difficulty blind you to your blessings. You want to feel strong? Start by seeing what has not broken you. You want to feel steady? Start by remembering how far you've come. Gratitude is the lens that shows you your strength, your resilience, your quiet victories. And when you see them, really see them, you move differently. You act with calm. You speak with depth. You breathe with intention. This is not theory. This is practice. Stoic philosophy is practice. So practice noticing. Notice the breath, the quiet, the roof, the strength, the people who love you, the moments you have endured. And say thank you, not as a ritual, but as a reset. Because when you shift your attention, you shift your identity. And a man who sees what he has builds more of it. Gratitude builds not by force, but by focus. The more you notice, the more you strengthen your peace, your presence, your direction. It is hard to be lost when you are thankful, because gratitude grounds you, pulls you back to what matters. And what matters is often small, quiet, easy to overlook. But when you slow down, you see it. And when you see it, you change. You start to act. Not out of fear, but from fullness. You don't need to chase, because you already have, and from that abundance you give, you create. You lead. Gratitude is not passive, it is not sitting in silence, it is active awareness. It sharpens your eye, clears your thoughts, and deepens your strength. It turns what you have into more than enough, and what you are into someone who cannot be shaken. Because no one can take what you already appreciate. You've already won. You've already received. But you must see it. Make this your practice. Wake up and notice. Say thank you. For the air, for the body, for the pain, for the challenges. A thank you not because life is easy, but because you are alive. And that is enough to begin again with strength. Stoic philosophy invites you to live on purpose. And part of that is to be aware of what you've been given. You will not feel grateful every day, but you can act grateful every day, and that choice will shape you. Just like discipline, gratitude is a habit, a standard, a quiet form of power. Practice it until it becomes you, until it moves through you into everything you touch. And then your life will change, not because more arrived, but because you finally noticed what was already here. And that is where peace begins. Your words are not just sounds, they are signals, they are structure. They are the mirror of your inner world, and the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you choose to express or stay silent says more about your discipline than any plan or goal. Will Stoic philosophy teaches that mastery begins with self, and communication is the bridge between your thoughts and the world you move through. But most people speak without thought. They listen only to respond, not to understand. They interrupt. They correct. They wait for their turn not to connect but to dominate. And slowly they lose the power of presence. Because true communication is not in how loud you speak, but how clearly you see, how deeply you understand, how still you can stay when someone else loses control. You want power? Then train your voice, but more importantly, train your ears. Stoic philosophy does not reward noise. It rewards clarity, and clarity requires stillness. When you speak with stillness, people listen. When you listen with stillness, people trust, because communication is not about winning, it is about aligning. And alignment is only possible through understanding. You want to be respected, then become someone who knows how to listen. Not just hear, but truly listen to. The fear beneath someone's anger to the need. Beneath someone's silence to the meaning behind their confusion. And that begins with you. If you don't listen to yourself, if you interrupt your own inner voice, if you ignore your intuition, you will do the same to others. You will speak too soon. You will react instead of respond. You will hurt instead of heal. And the worst part is, you won't even notice, because you've trained your communication to serve your ego, not your integrity. Stoic philosophy asks that you slow down, pause before you reply, breathe before you speak, check your intent before you correct. Ask yourself, am I speaking to be right or to be realam? I listening to defend or to connect? Most people speak to be heard, few speak to be felt, but you must become one of the few. The ones who think before they speak, the ones who see before they judge, the ones who know that words are weapons or medicine, depending on the hand that holds them. You want deeper relationships, more respect, a stronger voice, then learn to communicate with intention, a manipulation, not performance, not reaction, but presence. Speak less, mean more. Say what needs to be said, not what makes you feel superior. Listen longer even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Because the mark of a powerful mind is its ability to sit with tension without needing to escape it, and that's exactly what good communication requires. Tension, patience, honesty. Not performance, but presence. You do not need to speak eloquently, you only need to speak truthfully, with clarity, with care, and most of all with control. Because every word you speak shapes your environment, builds or breaks. Trust draws people closer or pushes them away. So let your communication be your discipline, not your defense. You don't always need to speak, and you don't always need to win. You need to align with your values, with your mission, with the deeper current of who you are. Becoming. Stoic philosophy calls for quiet mastery, and in communication that means restraint. Don't raise your voice, raise your clarity. Don't rush your answer. Sharpen your listening. Don't flood the space, own it. With presence, with respect, with silence when needed. And when you do speak, let it be few, but full. Let your words carry weight, not because they are clever, but because they are true. And let the people around you feel the steadiness, not of your voice, but of your mind, because the mind that has mastered itself does not need to prove it, only needs to express when necessary, with discipline, with dignity, with direction. And that is where your influence begins, not by force, but by presence, not by volume, but by clarity, not by dominance, but by truth. Without purpose, you will move, but you will never arrive. You will try, but you will never feel whole. Because movement without direction is not progress. It is exhaustion. And no amount of achievement can fill the space that only purpose was meant to occupy. Stoic philosophy teaches that a man without a reason is a man lost. Not because he has no energy, but because he wastes it on things that do not matter. He is busy but not effective. He is successful but not fulfilled. He climbs but doesn't know why he reaches, but never feels fully You must stop chasing goals and start asking deeper questions. What is the reason you do what you do? What is the fire beneath your routine? What is the meaning behind your ambition? Because until you define that, you will never feel peace. Purpose is not found in others. It is not handed to you. It is not chosen for you. You find it by listening, by remembering, by noticing when you feel most alive, most connected, most aligned. And often it is not loud. It is not flashy. It is not grand. Purpose begins in the quiet, in the unnoticed, in the small moments where your action feels like truth. Stoic philosophy does not define purpose as a single mission. It defines it as alignment, when your values match your direction, when your energy matches your integrity. You feel purpose, and once you feel it, you must protect it, because the world will try to pull you off course, with opinions, with distractions, with urgency that is not yours. You must stay close to your reason. Remind yourself why you started. Remind yourself who you are becoming. Because when purpose is clear, discipline becomes easier, sacrifice becomes sacred, and setbacks become part of the path, not proof of failure. Most people live reactively. They chase what others chase, they want what others want. They succeed, then feel empty, not because they lack effort, but because they lacked clarity. Purpose gives your life a center, and from that center you make choices not for pleasure, but for alignment. You say yes, not to everything, but to what fits your reason. You say no, not with guilt, but with certainty. You live not to impress, but to fulfill. Stoic philosophy teaches that without a strong why, you will break at every how. You will give up, not because you're weak, but because you forgot what you were fighting for. You want strength? Then find a reason stronger than your excuses. You want peace? Then live in a way that aligns with something higher than comfort. Purpose is not a destination. It is a direction. Is not what you do once. It is how you do everything, from a place of depth, of clarity, of presence. And yes, it may evolve. It may shift as you grow. But the more you walk with it, the more it refines you. It simplifies your decisions. It anchors your discipline. It makes you less reactive and more intentional. When you have purpose, you don't panic when things fall apart. You don't chase everything that glitters. You don't compete for validation. You build quietly, with focus, with faith. Because you know why you are here. You are not here to repeat cycles, to blend in, to survive. You are here to build something meaningful, even if no one sees, even if no one claps. You are here to walk with conviction, to suffer for something worth suffering for. You are here to become the fullest version of who you were made to be, not for applause, but for integrity. And that is where power begins, not in outcomes, but in purpose, not in recognition, but in realization, not in success, but in the steady walk toward what matters most. You know your purpose, but can you live it in the noise, in the silence, in the repetition? Most people find their why, but then lose it in the rush, in the distraction, in the comparison. They start strong, but slowly drift back into patterns that do not serve them. This is why Stoic philosophy matters, because purpose without structure falls apart. Discipline without direction burns out. You need both a reason and a rhythm. You need to know why you rise and how to rise every single day. This is where most men fail, not because they don't care, but because they don't commit. They try to live with intention, but keep getting pulled by urgency, by noise, by convenience. And slowly they lose the thread, but not you. You must return again and again to your center. Remind yourself, this is who I am. This is why I wake. This is how I walk. And from that clarity, you move not to impress, but to align, not to perform, but to become. You move with stillness, because noise no longer leads you. You move with grace, because the world's chaos no longer decides your pace. Stoic philosophy is not about coldness, it's about calmness, and calmness is not weakness. It is command. It is when you lead yourself, not through impulse, but through wisdom. And wisdom is not something you say, it's something you live through, how you act, how you show up, how you recover, how you choose. Especially when it's hard. Especially when no one is watching, your purpose must be protected. Not just with passion, but with structure. Not just with vision, but with boundaries. Protect your mind from unnecessary drama, from useless debates, from mental clutter. Protect your time from people who drain, from habits that distract, from urgency that isn't real. Protect your body by moving with care, resting with purpose, and nourishing your strength. Protect your attention, because whatever holds your attention will shape your direction. Most people feel lost, not because they have no purpose, but because their attention has been hijacked by noise, by opinions, by screens, by pressure. So bring it back. Return to your breath, to your values, to your present moment. Return to what matters. Your life is too precious to be scattered. Stoic philosophy reminds you, you are not here to do everything. You are here to do the right things, the essential things, the things that align with your core. Everything else is noise. Cut the noise and clarity will return. You don't need more hours. You need more intention with the hours you already have. And when you live that way, you become rare. The man who does not drift, who does not chase, who does not panic, but instead stays steady, clear-rooted, because he knows his life is not an accident. His path is not random. His mind is not for rent. And each step he takes is part of a quiet mission, not loud but powerful, not rushed but exact. You want fulfillment? Then let your daily actions become a form of prayer, not to something outside, but to the highest version of yourself. You are already walking. But from this point forward, walk as if every step matters, because it does, and over time the world may not notice, but you will. You will feel the shift in your energy, in your presence, in your confidence. Because you are no longer guessing your way through life. You are building, day by day, thought by thought, action by action. This is the life Stoic philosophy points toward, not glamorous but grounded, not fast but focused. And if you stay with it, if you return to it even when you drift, even when you fail, even when you feel like it's not working, you will realize your life was never meant to feel lost. It was meant to feel whole. And wholeness is not found, it is lived. You will be tested again and again, not by enemies, but by moments, by discomfort, by delay, by doubt. And in those moments you will be asked one silent question. Who leads you, your emotions or your principles, your mood or your values, your past or your vision? Stoic philosophy begins here, not with power over the world, but with power over the self. Because the world will always be shifting, always be spinning, always be uncertain. But you must learn to remain calm while others react, clear while others panic, focused while others scatter. This is not arrogance, this is discipline. This is not detachment, this is presence. You do not need to be loud to be in control. You only need to know who you are and what you refuse to compromise. Most people are ruled by feelings. They don't examine, they are pulled by narratives they never questioned. They are shaped by noise they never silenced. But you must be different. You must stop letting temporary emotion decide permanent direction. You must train your response before life demands it. You must build stillness before the storm arrives, because once it does, it is too late to begin. Stoic philosophy is preparation, is repetition, is calmness earned through the fire of restraint, through the practice of self-command. You will not feel like leading yourself every day, but you must do it anyway. And in doing so, you will become stronger than any circumstance. Do not wait for motivation, for permission, for alignment. Act now from principle. Not pressure, act from clarity. Not chaos, act from your code, not your craving. This is the essence of sovereignty. You are free when no impulse, no voice, no weakness can move you off your path. Freedom is not doing what you want. Freedom is becoming someone who wants what aligns with truth, and truth is quiet, rare, and costly, but it is the only thing worth building your life on. Ask yourself, what does my mind serve? Distraction or direction? What does my body serve? Comfort or commitment? What does my life serve? Validation or virtue? And if you do, not like the answer, change it. Not loudly, not someday, but today, in the next choice you make, because every choice is training. You are not stuck. You are practicing, and what you practice, you become. So practice inner strength, practice self-honesty, practice emotional clarity. Learn to pause before reaction. Learn to sit with discomfort. Learn to let people misunderstand you if explaining yourself would mean betraying yourself. You do not owe anyone a version of you that does not exist. Stand in who you are, and allow your silence to do the talking. Allow your results to do the proving. Allow your peace to become louder than anyone's chaos. You do not need to prove, you only need to persist, because strength does not shout. It stands. Stoic philosophy gives you this not by changing the world, but by showing you how to hold yourself steady when the world does not change. And this is where real power begins, not with control, but with clarity, not with dominance, but with direction, not with ego, but with inner order. You want greatness, but will you still want it when it gets boring, when it gets slow, when it gets quiet? Because the truth is, most people don't fail because they don't start. They fail because they don't stay. They stop when it's no longer exciting, when no one is clapping, when the goal feels far and the reward feels invisible. But Stoic philosophy reminds you your strength is not measured by how loud you begin, but by how silently you endure, by how often you repeat what matters, especially when no one is watching. Repetition is the real test, not intensity, not passion, but repetition. Can you show up day after day when motivation has left, when emotions fluctuate, when nothing seems to change? Can you repeat the small things, the quiet disciplines, the invisible decisions with full effort and no applause? This is what separates the steady from the scattered, the ones who rise from the ones who repeat collapse. You want to build something meaningful? Then you must love the work, not just the result. You must fall in love with the routine, with the silence, with the consistency, because it is not the size of what you do once, but the shape of what you do daily that defines your life. You are not what you say you will do. You are what you repeat. Especially when it's hard, Stoic philosophy teaches you to find pride in what others overlook, to find clarity in repetition, to find peace in perseverance. The world will keep offering shortcuts, distractions, dopamine hits, but you must stay grounded in your system, in your structure, in your slow, deliberate, unshakable rhythm. Greatness is slow, but it is inevitable for the one who does not stop. Remember, a stone is not split by one blow, but by the 1,000 that came before. And your life will not transform because of one big moment, but because of the quiet ones that stacked up without anyone noticing, until one day they became too real, too undeniable to ignore. So do not stop, do not rush, do not scatter your energy, trying to chase what is fast. Stay, and in staying, you will build what most never touch: a calm that cannot be shaken, a character that does not collapse, a life that speaks louder than words. And yes, you will be bored, you will be tired, you will be tempted, but you will remember that every repetition is a vote for the man you want to be. Every time you do the work, you whisper to yourself, I keep my word, I keep my focus, I keep going, and that identity becomes unbreakable, because repetition builds proof, and proof builds belief. This is not philosophy for comfort. This is Stoic philosophy for living, for rising, for building foundations that hold through every storm. So the next time it feels dull, feel that and still do it. The next time no one sees, do it anyway. The next time you question if it's worth it, remind yourself, this is the work that most avoid, but you were never here to be most. You were here to become the kind of man who finishes what he starts. Not with noise, but with presence. Not with speed, but with steadiness. Not with perfection, but with persistence. This is how you win, slowly, quietly, repeatedly. Every day you are making choices, whether you acknowledge them or not. And every choice is a direction. Every action is a declaration of who you are becoming. You may think you are stuck, but you are choosing again and again. You are choosing to stay where it's safe or move where it's right. You are choosing to repeat what numbs you or practice what shapes you. You are choosing to react or to respond. Stoic philosophy begins with responsibility, radical responsibility. Ownership, not blame. Not guilt, but honest, quiet ownership. The kind that whispers, no one is coming to save me, and that's exactly why I must act. Not for attention, not for validation, but because this life is mine, completely mine, and everything I tolerate becomes part of it. Every habit I keep, every voice I follow, every excuse I allow. They all shape my future, my identity, my reality. You want a different life, then make different choices, not someday, but now, in the next breath, in the next moment, in the next discipline. Because life is not changed in years. It is changed in small, seemingly insignificant moments that compound into everything. And if you're not careful, you'll wake up one day realizing you didn't choose your life. You allowed it. You let it drift. You let At default, you let it happen to you. But Stoic philosophy reminds you life is not something to survive. It is something to build, deliberately, with clarity, with character. You are the builder. Every thought, every decision, every morning, you rise instead of retreat. This is your blueprint. You want clarity. Stop asking and start acting. Because action clarifies. You want peace, then stop blaming and start building one brick at a time. It's easy to blame your childhood, your parents, the economy, the algorithm, the world. But none of that can change your future until you decide to take back your power. You may not be responsible for what broke you, but you are responsible for what you do with the pieces. You may not have caused the wound, but you are the only one who can heal it. This is what it means to become sovereign. Not loud, not forceful, but centered in the knowledge that your energy, your time, your mind are yours, and they can be directed with intention. You don't need to be in control of everything, only of yourself, your responses, your thoughts, your choices, because those are enough to transform everything. There is no freedom without responsibility. You cannot be free while pointing fingers. You cannot be strong while waiting for someone else to lead your life. You want to become powerful, then take responsibility for your time, your energy, your standards. No one else will care for your life like you must. And that is not a burden. It is a gift, because it means you can begin again at any moment. You can choose better now and now and now, and with every choice you write your story. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be honest with where you are and who you want to be, and then take one step in that direction again and again until the gap closes and the man you become matches the man you once imagined. This is the slow, real, sacred work. The work most people avoid, but you are not most people. You are awake, you are aware, you are willing to carry the weight of your own life. And that is what makes you free. The world will shake again and again with noise, with speed, with pressure. People will rush, they will panic, they will drown themselves in distraction. They will chase the newest trend, the latest answer, the quickest comfort. But you must remain, because the man who remains when others scatter becomes the one they look to when the storm does not stop. Stoic philosophy does not promise that the world will become quiet. It teaches you how to become quiet within, and that is real strength. Not to run, not to fight everything, but to remain grounded while everything around you changes. This is what it means to master yourself. Not that chaos disappears, but that it no longer moves you. Not that problems stop arising, but that you rise no matter what comes still. Steady present, most people react, you respond. Most people rush, you remain. This is your power, your responsibility. Your gift, because the truth is your calm is louder than their noise. Your peace is more powerful than their panic. Your clarity is more influential than their confusion. And you build this not once but daily by what you focus on, by what you allow in, by what you choose to carry. You do not need to carry everything. Stoic philosophy teaches you to carry only what is yours, only what you can control, and the rest you let pass like clouds, like wind, like waves. This is the way of the anchored mind, rooted in values, not moods, rooted in principle. Not pressure. You want to be strong. Learn to stay calm. You want to be wise. Learn to wait. You want to be powerful. Learn to say less, feel more, react slower. The strongest man in the room is rarely the one speaking. He is the one who can sit with tension and not flinch, the one who can feel the storm and not run, the one who has built such a deep center that no surface disruption can move him. This is not passivity, this is preparation, this is not weakness, this is wisdom. Because when you are calm, you see what others miss, you hear what others talk over, you move with intention, not impulse. And in a world that cannot stop moving, you become the one who knows exactly when to move and when to stay still. This kind of power cannot be bought. It cannot be borrowed. It must be trained in silence, in solitude, in simplicity. Every time you choose stillness, you sharpen clarity. Every time you wait before speaking, you deepen understanding. Every time you pause before reacting, you reclaim your authority. And in doing so, you become a man who is not controlled by moods, by markets, by media, but by mission, by virtue, by vision. And that kind of man does not panic. He plans, he prepares, he proceeds. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. And when the world crumbles, he remains, because what he built was not external. It was internal, and the internal can endure. This is the call of Stoic philosophy, not to escape the world, but to master yourself so deeply that the world can no longer shake you. That man who is quiet but undeniable, who is slow but deliberate, who is kind but firm, and who walks through fire without losing his form, not because he's fearless, but because he is focused on what matters, on what he can control, on who he is becoming. This is how you lead yourself. This is how you lead others, not by shouting, but by standing, not by fighting everything, but by mastering your own response, not by chaos, but by clarity. The test does not arrive when things are calm. The test arrives in discomfort and delay and disappointment, and when it does, you will not be judged by your words, but by your response. This is the moment you find out who you are, not when it's easy, but when nothing goes right, when your plans collapse, when no one understands, when you are alone and the voice in your head asks if it's worth it. That's where character is forged, not by comfort, but by fire. Stoic philosophy prepares you for this moment. It teaches you that suffering is not the enemy and pain is not your end. They are portals to strength. They are weights you learn to carry, and in carrying them, you become something the world cannot break. The world will try to make you bitter, to make you small, to make you doubt yourself, but you must not allow it. You must rise not through rage, but through resilience, not by screaming, but by standing again and again. This is your work, to take the hard things and turn them into healing, to take the pain and turn it into purpose. Every struggle, every setback, every silence is an invitation. An invitation to show up as the man you said you wanted to become. Most people run from hardship. They numb it, hide from it, blame others for it. But you must stand inside it, look it in the eye and say, I'm still here, I'm still breathing, I'm still building, I'm still becoming. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. Because I will not live my life avoiding storms. I will become the kind of man who can walk through them. And this is the truth Stoic philosophy reveals. There is no strength without resistance. There is no peace without pressure. There is no clarity without chaos. You want to grow? Then stop asking for comfort. Start asking, what is this moment here to teach me? What is this pain refining in me? What is this season breaking that was holding me back? Because every hard thing is shaping you into something harder to break. And every time you stay calm when the world expects you to collapse, you rise, not in noise, but in substance, because growth is quiet. It does not beg. It does not show off. It just builds deep roots, deep focus, deep strength. And over time, it becomes undeniable. Not in words, but in the way you carry yourself, in the way you breathe, in the way you walk through storms without looking down. And when you fall, because you will, you rise, not with shame, but with wisdom, because the fall is not the end. It is the next chapter, and the man who keeps rising is the man who cannot be stopped. This is the call, not to escape hardship, but to let hardship sharpen you. Not to avoid struggle, but to let struggle mature you, because that is how you become more than just strong. You become whole. You become a man who has looked into the storm and stayed, who has faced the doubt and moved anyway, who has broken but rebuilt. Not the same but better, not bitter but wiser. And when others ask, how did you get here? How did you survive that? How did you stay calm? You won't need to explain. They will feel it in your presence, in your decisions, in your steadiness. This is what Stoic philosophy gives you. Not a path without storms, but a soul that cannot be destroyed by them. You've walked far, you've endured much, you've risen again and again, and now you know you were never here just to survive, just to chase, just to impress. You were here to become not just a man of words, but of weight, not just a man who reacts, but a man who responds, not just a man who runs fast, but one who moves with purpose, with clarity, with calm. This is what Stoic philosophy builds in you, a way of being that is not ruled by trend, not shaken by opinion, not driven by impulse, but held steady by something deeper: values, vision, discipline. You now understand that belief, discipline, gratitude, communication, and purpose were never separate. They were layers stacked, forged, and refined into one thing. You, the man who chooses silence when noise rises, a man who acts when others wait, the man who lives by principle, not pressure, the man who no longer waits to be saved or seen or validated, but who walks with his own light, because he spent enough time in the dark to learn how to carry it. You felt the resistance, the temptation to quit, to hide, to give in. But you chose again and again to return to what matters, to what's real, to what endures, and that choice is everything. It separates those who try from those who transform. You now know your peace is your responsibility. Your standard is your weapon. Your mind is your home. And if you guard that mind, you guard your future. Because everything you do flows from it. The way you speak, the way you love, the way you build, the way you lead. It all begins with your inner state, so build that state every day. Not once, not when it's easy, but always in how you waken, how you think, and how you treat the small, the unnoticed, the invisible, because how you do the invisible is how you shape the inevitable. This is your power, not force, but self-direction. Not control over others, but full command over yourself. And when you master that, everything shifts. You don't need to chase peace. You are peace. You don't need to shout truth. You are truth. You don't need to beg for strength, you live it. You carry it, you speak without needing to speak. Because everything about you is aligned. No more guessing. No more drifting. No more abandoning yourself to fit a mold that never fit. This is the man you've built through the repetition, through the fire, through the long hours when no one was clapping. He rose quietly, deliberately. And now he does not bend. He does not break. He simply walks his path with presence and principle. And that is the legacy. Not what you own, but how you carry yourself. Not what you post, but how you lead in silence. Not what you say, but what people feel when you enter a room, because your life has become the message, so now walk. Not because it's finished, but because you've begun in the only way that matters. Fully, freely, unshakably. This is your life, and it was never meant to be average. It was meant to become something real, something rooted, something remembered. Because the man who lives by Stoic philosophy may be quiet, but he is never forgotten.